siblings of the golden child. When did your parents' favoritism come back to bite them? My older brother was a literal genius while I was the problem kid who barely graduated. From age 6, he was different. He could memorize entire books after reading them once, solve math problems in his head that took me 20 minutes with a calculator, and debate philosophy with Dad's university professor friends. I got held back in 3rd grade for reading issues. When we were 10, my brother won the state science fair with a working Tesla coil. I won a participation ribbon in soccer that Mom threw in the junk drawer. The difference was insane. My brother got tutors for subjects he already aced, summer programs at MIT, a dedicated study room Dad converted from the garage. I got yelled at for asking Dad to help with basic homework because he was too busy prepping my brother for academic competitions. In high school, my brother took college classes and finished with a 4.8 GPA. I barely scraped a 2.3 working full-time at AutoZone to pay for my own car because they said transportation builds character. My brother got a new Civic and gas money. College was a nightmare. My brother got into Princeton, Yale, and Stanford. Full rides to all 3. The celebration lasted a week. I got into a trade school for HVAC repair, and Mom cried like I'd announced I was dropping out entirely. Dad told his friends his son was going to Princeton. He never mentioned having 2 sons. My brother's freshman year, I moved 4 states away to Dallas for an apprenticeship. Nobody asked about it. Every call was about his classes, his professors, his research opportunities with a Nobel Prize winner. I was installing air conditioners in 110-degree attics and getting electrocuted every other week. But here's what nobody noticed. My brother's genius came with a price. His brain never shut off. He couldn't sleep, couldn't relax, couldn't stop thinking. By sophomore year, he was taking pills to focus, then pills to sleep, then pills to wake up. His roommate called me once worried because my brother hadn't left his room in 5 days, just coding nonstop, not eating. I told my parents. They said he was busy with important research. They called it dedication. Junior year, my brother had a complete psychotic break during finals. He was found outside the computer science building at 4 a.m., barefoot in December, convinced he'd solved consciousness and needed to upload his brain to the server. He spent 3 weeks in psychiatric care. Even then, my parents spun it as stress from being too brilliant. They told family he was taking a semester off for an exclusive internship. Nobody could know their perfect son was struggling. He came home medicated and hollow. The spark was gone. He'd sleep 16 hours, stare at walls, barely speak. Doctors said he'd pushed his brain too hard for too long. Extreme sleep deprivation, malnutrition, and amphetamine abuse triggered something that might not fully heal. He'd need care, supervision, probably forever. My parents were shattered, but still in denial. Meanwhile, I'd gotten licensed and opened my own HVAC company at 24 with 2 trucks. At 27, I had 12 employees and contracts with commercial builders across Dallas. At 31, I owned the largest residential HVAC operation in North Texas with 60 employees and revenue pushing $8 million yearly. I bought a house with a pool and married someone who actually knew I existed. My parents called once every few months, always about my brother, never about me. Until last year, my brother tried to overdose on his medications. He survived, but needed full-time psychiatric care, the kind that costs $8,000 monthly that insurance barely touches. My parents had burned their retirement on his education. Dad was 68, still working, drowning in medical debt. Mom stopped posting on Facebook entirely after years of bragging about her Princeton son. They called me from the hospital. Dad actually said my name for the first time in years. They needed help. The care facility wanted 6 months up front. I wired $48,000 that day. Then I paid off their mortgage, $130,000 they'd refinanced twice to cover my brother's medical costs that kept mounting. Now I cover my brother's care, their bills, and visit him twice a month in Denver, where he's finally stable and painting, something he never had time for before. He tells me he wishes he'd been the disappointing one, that maybe he would have been happier fixing air conditioners. My parents finally talk about me now. They tell people about my company, my success, how proud they are. It only took their genius son's brain breaking and them losing everything for them to notice I existed. Dad called last week asking about my daughter's birthday party. He's never asked about my kids before. Mom requested photos of my house. 20 years of wanting their attention, and I finally got it by becoming their only option.